Hello, folks. Just a quick note before we start this podcast. We had a few mic issues during this podcast, and we know there's a little bit of background noise and crackling and popping, and we apologize for that. But rather than go back and re-record everything, we decided to just release it as is and hope that you forgive us. So sit back and enjoy. Thanks a lot.
So I was in the shower, I was cleaning my ass and making all sure it's all sparkly, spanky clean.
I'm not the funny one, I'm the pretty one.
Cock shots. I just checked myself out.
Candles, music, wine, and then lube up and get on top.
The glory hole's like a dick theater. I've imagined your family.
Which means your pants had better come off. Mama needs playtime. I do this.
We're not sluts.
We just love love. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mrs. Adam.
And this is Mr. Adam.
You're listening to us here on By the By.
Yes, and if everything goes well, you have just listened to the first time our awesome intro music that has just died away.
Yeah.
If you don't hear that, then wait till next time.
Well, something went wrong, yeah.
Yes, we had some fantastic intro music written and sampled for us by the wonderful
Fabulous Danny.
Danny.
Yes.
So hopefully that's on the front end of this. It all
Fingers
matters.
crossed it all goes through.
It all matters. It's just good
Yeah.
to me if I can figure out how to fucking do this. Let me just say, folks, if you've never tried to podcast and you're an avid podcast listener, find your local podcast person and pat them on the back. We have it's taken us 45 fucking minutes in order to get this set up and start this podcast.
And admittedly, we changed programs that we're using, so I think I understand this one a lot better than I understood the last one. So hopefully, we'll see how it goes in the future.
And I clearly don't understand any of them. Clearly.
Yeah.
It's just mystical magic to me. So anyway, let's see. What's new? What's going on? Anything new and exciting?
We've had a couple of dates. We had a
Oh yeah.
we had a date with a new female.
Yeah, potential unicorn.
Yeah,
Ooh,
that went. I think it went quite well.
Well, she's still talking to us, so that's a plus.
Yes, yeah. We have not had a second date yet, but she's on holiday for a bit, so we'll see what happens when she comes back.
Yeah. We'll keep up with that.
Yeah.
I had a really good coffee date today.
Mm-hmm.
With somebody that I met on Grindr of all things. At some point, we need to do a Grindr podcast.
Yeah.
Or an apps podcast or whatnot. But yeah, this actually went really well, and I was really tempted to break my no hooking up on the first date. I was so tempted. It was one of those, we sort of stared at each other and was like,
that's one of those soft rules.
It's a soft rule, but because
maybe more of a boundary than a rule.
Perhaps.
But yeah.
But yeah, yeah, I don't know. It was one of those things I was like, ooh, I really, really want to, but I didn't.
He's really cute too.
He is really
At
cute.
least the pictures I don't find in person.
Yeah, in person, he's an interesting guy, really intelligent, yeah, fun to talk to. So
good.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
It is funny though that the person who loves going to saunas has an issue of hooking up on the first date. I don't know.
Yeah.
One is mutual masturbation, one is sex. Completely different. That's another podcast.
Actually, yeah, it's quite different.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, I can agree with that.
What else have we got going on?
We've got a couple dates coming up in the next few weeks. So that'll be fun. It's like with some people that we've hooked up with before, not
Yeah,
usual swinger couples.
It's so funny. I have no idea what's going on. We actually have a calendar that we share with people, potential play partners, and it's like oh, let's see when we can schedule each other in. This life thing sucks.
It's pretty busy. It gets full quickly.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Oh, terrible. We're gonna start that already, are we?
We are. Oh God. Yeah. So yeah, it's been nothing terribly exciting going on.
No,
we have now been almost 2 months, 6 weeks, I guess. 6 weeks since we've played with somebody else.
Has it been that long?
It was the housewarming party.
Right.
Yeah. It was Maria and Tony.
That's okay. It won't be too much longer.
I'm about to freak out.
Well,
I've almost gone to the sauna a couple of times during the day.
If nothing else, next weekend we have a couple dates.
Do we?
Yeah. Don't worry, it's on the calendar.
I have no idea. See, I need to look at the fucking calendar. Anyway, yeah. So, but yeah, I'm kind of. I know you're getting stir crazy because I've seen you stare at people when we walk on the street, and I'm like, honey, close your mouth. There's been a couple of those.
Sorry, I don't even realize it.
Yeah, you're like, mama once, like, down, girl, heel, stay.
Yeah, you have needs.
I'm not judging. I'm in that same boat. God, every time we walk by the gym up here and the guys are coming out, I'm like, yeah,
Like a rabid dog.
I am. I just realized that nobody can see my movements.
No.
I was pulling against the leash. Anyway, so let's move on.
Okay.
What do we have? What do you have in store for us tonight?
Well, we had a interesting conversation recently via text with a new person that we started chatting with, but we've not yet met in person. I think we're scheduled to meet up
Sunday,
so this weekend.
Yeah.
So not very long from now, we're gonna meet up with them. But we had interesting chats back and forth, and I wanted to kind of discuss some of the questions that he asked because of where he came from. So we met this person on an app, of course,
Thrinder.
on Thrinder.
If you're not on Thrinder, look, don't really get on Thrinder.
It's
I don't know. These people are the people we found on Thrinder are less reliable than the people we've found on Grindr.
yeah. But I also think it's, and I don't know, but there's no real information on Thrinder, which
yeah.
there's not on Grindr either. But it seems
Yeah.
as though people on Grindr are more willing to chat in the moment, kind of quickly. Like let's at least see if just talked about something.
Agreed.
And on Thrinder, it's a little slower. You don't necessarily get as much back and forth. But yeah, so we met him on Thrinder. Of course, there's not a lot of information on there other than he's straight. So we know
Yes,
that.
he's straight.
And
Dun dun dun. And I have this. I will say the reason that we've matched them. You might be like, but guys, why are you matching someone who's straight when every other profile you have says you don't want to talk to anybody who's not bi? And it's because I have this recent. I'm not gonna say fantasy. It's somewhere between a fantasy and a need to watch you with another guy.
Yeah.
And I don't care if I'm any part of it.
Because we've had that a few times before, but one guy partner that we could do that with is now off the table. So.
Monogamy. Bless and curse you at the same time.
Yeah. So that was and also, and so of course me being skeptical, the first thing I thought is, okay, he says he's straight, but is he really? Because
very few people pretend to be straight.
But you get that on RHP all the time. Guys say that they're straight, but then they're like,
okay.
well, I'm curious and I'm experimental and whatever.
Done.
And so, going from, but again, it's a different platform. It's a different population that's using it for the most part. And so you have to take that into context and, So anyway.
You're so sciencey. So turned on when you science on me. Yeah, science on my chest.
And that's for another podcast.
This science is salty. Okay, sorry. I'm trying to focus. I'm having trouble tonight. This is why you're completely in charge tonight.
So one of the first questions, like right out of the, well, I can't say right out of the gate after I was introduced, because Mr. Adam and
oh yeah, that's true.
And this person, they had a few.
We're not giving him a name yet. He hasn't earned it.
No. So Mr. Adam and this guy had a few chats, whatever, back and forth, and he was basically like, how do I know she's real?
That's a good point.
And so he added me to the conversation, and this was all during the workday, so I admittedly ignored a lot of it until the end of the workday.
And I ignored a lot of work so I could communicate with this person.
So I came into it, and there's, a whole big list of back and forth and whatever, and I chime in kind of, every couple hours.
Just to let people know she's real.
And so anyway, one of the very first questions after I came in was, do swinger parties exist?
Well, hey, okay, a little more background on this guy that you didn't really have, because he and I did chat a bit before. I think he's one of those guys that honestly makes French vanilla look spicy. I mean, he is as...
So he's manufactured vanilla?
He is manufactured vanilla. He is pure, refined white sugar. I mean, he's, and there's nothing wrong with that. He is
No,
just
absolutely not.
inexperienced. He, again, a little more background on it. He's young. He's, I don't know,
Mid to late 20s.
mid to late 20s. He is, he's been in a couple of long-term relationships. I get the feeling that his long-term relationships were very, vanilla relationships.
Right.
I mean, hell, I came out of a marriage where, it was every time was missionary time. Not Miller time, missionary time. It was normally Miller
And that
time
wasn't
before and
frequent.
after.
Yeah.
But I mean, so I get that.
No, absolutely.
So I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to explore this untapped world that he honestly doesn't even know is real.
Yes.
Much like, and our American listeners will get a giggle out of this, we always, questions like from Australians, we get, are cafeterias and schools real? Are yellow school buses? Do you actually ride a yellow school bus to go to school? Both answers are yes for our Australian listeners. There are real cafeterias, just like in Glee, and there are real yellow school buses. The short ones were the ones that Mrs. Adam and I rode on. But it's kind of that thing.
Right.
He's trying to determine if this shit be real.
Yes. And I gathered that later on in the conversation because his long-term relationships came up much, much later.
Mhm.
But I didn't have any background on it. And so, when we start out with do swinger parties exist, I understand that many people don't see that side of the world. Their experiences are, of course, very different. But at the same time, you see it on TV.
Right.
It's on there for a reason, like the yellow school buses and like the cafeterias.
Well, yeah, but I also watch Star Trek.
There's some basis in reality.
Star Trek has no basis in reality.
We're not talking about Star Trek.
I know,
here.
but I'm just saying that same logic can be used on Star Trek.
Space.
Okay.
We weren't talking about swingers clubs in space.
How about Grimm?
Although who's going?
That's set in like Seattle. Seattle be real.
Who's going to Mars? Because we
Portland?
can
I
open
don't
up a
know.
swingers club up in Mars.
Oh, dude, we should totally open a swingers club in Mars.
How do we sign up for this?
I don't know. Anyway.
Okay, so that was question number 1 that I saw.
Okay, so swinger clubs or swinger parties are real. They're not key parties. That still cracks me up. If you watched the movie Swingers, it's nothing like that. If you've watched porn, it's nothing like that either. And I get the feeling, and I was very clear with him. Well, I'm sure. Admittedly, I don't know what Mrs. Adam has in store for this podcast. I didn't read her question list before because I couldn't be bothered. But I get the feeling that a lot of his information comes from porn.
I got that feeling as well.
And I tried my best to destroy that because porn is not real, people. You watch porn, it might be real sex.
It's scripted, it's directed.
It's as real as Star Trek. I mean, I love Star Trek. I'm not ragging on Star Trek. Love Star Trek. Go Gene Roddenberry. Anyway, but it's the equivalency of realness is there. But he asked if their swinger parties were real. Swinger parties are real. Swinger clubs are real. Sydney has at least 2 major swinger clubs. There's a couple of fringe ones, which at some point we should probably go through and discuss. We should totally go to all of those and then write it off as a tax deduction. Can we do that? This isn't a business. Can we make this a business for a tax deduction alone? Anyway, I digress. But yes, so so I thought that was a cute question. It's an innocent question.
It was an innocent
It's
question.
endearing for me.
Yes, and it made a little more sense once I figured out that he was more vanilla. Because admittedly, when I get introduced to someone with no background,
Right.
and I assume they're of similar, maybe not exactly, but similar-ish mindsets and lifestyle and whatnot. So
Yeah.
But it became, as I read through all the text, it became apparent that that's not really the case with this one. Because then the very next question was, is our open relationship a secret to family and friends?
Yeah. Which is another fair question. And
It is, absolutely.
we get that a lot.
Yeah,
That's
because a lot of people do keep it pretty hush-hush.
which I respect completely.
And there's many good reasons for
There
that.
are 1,000,001 good
Yeah.
reasons for that.
Absolutely.
I don't adhere to any of those reasons. And for me, I spent a lot of time in the closet. I kept my love for guys hidden from everyone. Um, and I'm sick of that. I don't want to live that kind of lifestyle anymore. It's just
It's
it's
exhausting.
exhausting. Yeah.
And it takes so much more work than I think it's really ultimately worth.
So yeah, we are completely 100%. I say that. I should rephrase that. We don't hide anything.
Mm-mm.
Which part of
We
me
don't
makes
necessarily flaunt it either.
Yeah, and part of
So,
me feels a bit disingenuous in saying that because we use pseudonyms on those podcasts that we're currently
true.
talking on. The only reason that we're doing that currently is because we're on a temporary visa. I
Mm.
don't think that it would affect our visa status. It
shouldn't.
shouldn't affect our visa
Yeah.
status, but I don't know how.
People can be
Oh
wonky
yeah,
sometimes.
the liberal government is still in charge down here. Oh, for our American listeners, their liberal government is the equivalent of Trump. Makes no sense to me either. The word liberal and Trump, I don't think should be used in the same sentence, but it is the
The
same.
the liberal government is the conservative
Yeah,
government.
bizarre as hell. I don't
Yeah.
understand it. Anyway, mind fuck. Um,
That was one of the first things we learned moving down.
yeah, yeah, because people are like, oh, what are you? Oh, we're very liberal. Really? We got that a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Then we finally learned that liberal meant conservative,
so yeah, we
which is still not as conservative as the states, though.
oh, I don't know. I actually think it
Maybe in
is.
some respects. In some
I,
respects, not all
I
though.
don't think it's as dangerous as the states, but I think
Maybe.
it is as
Yeah.
conservative.
Okay. Fair enough.
But yeah, that's a whole other podcast. But yeah, we to talk about being open. My
Yeah.
parents both. I don't know. I've never actually come out to my dad as being bisexual. My dad knows because he talks to my mom. But my mom knows everything. I'm 100%
And as far
transparent with my
as
mom, and I accidentally. So, that's actually in our new stuff. If you're a Penthouse reader, their Black Label magazine, we have a forum piece that we may have written for the most
Yeah.
recent kink issue. So read that. Go and read that. But yeah, so I may have texted my mom a tagline for our podcast inadvertently. That was awkward. But yeah, so
but she took it very well.
she took it. My mom.
She's amazing.
She's
Yeah.
a wonderful sarcastic monster. I love her.
Yeah, and I know that you've at least made a comment I don't know if it was inadvertently or not, but you've made a comment or two about the open relationship, while your dad was on the phone.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it's not.
Oh yeah.
Again, it's not that we hide it at all, but at the same time, we're not going to be like, oh, hey, guess who we
Well,
slept with this weekend?
exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, because there is some decorum that's to be
Well,
had.
I discussed going to tryst with my mom, and dad was on
Yeah.
the phone. So that's something that at some point we should write that down. We need to talk about tryst at some point.
we haven't got back
That's
to
a new
that.
podcast as well. Wow, we have just this one podcast. We've talked about 7 future podcasts. Anyway, but yeah. So the long and short of it is no. All of our friends down here in Australia, and even most of our work colleagues, to some extent, the people who need to know.
Yeah.
We don't hide it from anybody. It's it's for me. It's part of how I self-identify.
Mhm.
When I look in the mirror, I don't want to hide that person from
Right.
the people outside.
And I do want to clarify too, because you said, all of our friends in Australia, but also many of our friends in the States, the ones that we're close
Right,
to.
the ones that matter.
Not associates and,
Yeah.
people that are on the periphery of your friend zone. But
No
all the ones that are,
acquaintances.
yeah, but the people that we're actually truly friends with, they all know for sure.
Yeah.
And it's part of who we are. And we don't hide who we are when we're around our
Yeah.
friends. So it's too exhausting. We both did it for so long, and it just isn't worth it. It takes too much energy, and I'd rather direct that in a positive direction.
Right, yeah. And I respect and understand there's people out there who have to do it because of your
Yes.
job, because of your religion, because
Family
of family
pressures,
pressures or
yeah.
friend pressures or
Yeah.
the current life that you're
Societal
in. Yeah.
pressures. Yeah.
And that fucking sucks. But
But there are ways that, and we've encountered this with some of our friends who, don't necessarily tell really anyone per se. But yeah, there are little ways like your very very bestest of friends, like your closest one or two friends may know, and so that at least you have some release and somewhere to talk about it if you need to.
Yeah.
But not everyone in your friend circle knows, because not everybody may not need to, and it may change.
And that's true.
things,
You know,
so.
they may not need to. You know, and
Yeah.
I always.
But if you, as long as you have somebody that you can talk to, and even if it's swinger friends or somebody, just somebody that's like-minded that you can just kind of let loose and be yourself with.
You know, and I think one of the interesting thing is this, and I'm not encouraging anybody to air quotes come out, but you know, due to a situation on Tinder, I had to come out to my boss as Mrs. Adam and I were in an open relationship, and that was a very, as you might imagine, uncomfortable conversation with my boss, and it was just happened that to give a little more background, I matched with, or I accidentally, honestly, I really did accidentally match with somebody on Tinder who I knew was an ex coworker. Yeah, it was a work circle thing, and was an ex coworker with my boss, and blah 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 blah. Anyway, and this person freaked out, was ugly and whatever. But so I was afraid that this person would go to my current boss, this person ex coworker, and cause a problem. And again, with being on a temporary visa, I was like, holy shit, we're gonna get deported because we're in an open relationship. I know making mountains out of molehills, but still.
Somebody's a classic overthinker.
Yup. So I went to my boss. I said, look, told him the entire story.
Before you hear it from another
Before you hear it from outside,
here's what happened.
This is what happened. And there was this long pause, and he went, I don't fucking care. As long as you do your job, it does not affect me. Stop telling me these things. Which I really respect, and that's really great. And, I remember with my official coming out story to my mom when, I was at the time married to a woman, and at the same time I was dating a guy, and I was very stressed out. I was at Reagan Airport, and was going over with my mom, and she was like, I know something's wrong with you, because they had just spent some time with us. She goes, what's wrong? And I went, my wife and I are having a problem. And she goes, I know, what's wrong? And I said, I have been cheating for the last few months. And she goes, okay, is that all? And I went, it was with a guy. And there was this dead silence on the phone. My mom goes, oh God, did he give you something? And I went, no. And there was this pause. She goes, did you give him something? Like, no. She goes, oh, well, that's it? And so, it's like, she's like, that's okay. That's fine. And she was like, and she's always been, that's okay, that's fine. Her biggest concern was that, first, that he gave me some STD, and second, that I gave him some STD. Which I absolutely love that. I mean, that's, so, but my point to all of this long story,
Go ahead.
My point to all of this long story is that your imagination is your worst enemy. The scariest thing is a knock at the door. And until you open that door, whatever's on the other side, whatever you're imagining is there, is so much worse than what might actually be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely not going to be any worse than what you imagine, but more often than not, it is so much better and easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in a very scary place. And, both these times, which I think, holy shit, I'm either going to lose my job or my family's going to disown me. Yeah. Both times people were just like, fuck, I don't care. Just do your thing and get out of my face. My mom wasn't like that. She wasn't get out of my face. She was like, give me a hug. But, it was a very good, and I know not everybody is lucky enough to have either a work situation or a family situation in which they can do that. Yeah. But I was, so. No, now I sound like I'm bragging. Now I feel like I should go, I was, though, meh. I don't mean it that way.
No, you've been very fortunate.
I've been very lucky. Yeah. I don't want to be a dick. Well, you are what you eat, though.
Oh, wow.
Sorry.
Awesome.
I was just about to drink some wine, and then it popped in my head. Anyway. did you have a point you would make while I was rambling on and on and on?
Oh, I just think it's funny that the second thing that your mom asked is if you gave him something, because at that point you were married in a quote-unquote monogamous relationship. And so if you gave him something, where does she think you got it
Oh,
from?
that just tells you, Mama knows. Mama knows. She's
Yeah,
like, this ain't the
your
first time.
Yeah, your parents may not let you know that they know. They may pretend to be naive, but they see a lot more than
My
you realize.
mom was an animalistic hippie. I am pretty sure my mom was you. Like, and I say that as in, she was pouncing on people walking on the street.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
I could see that.
I'm pretty sure she was a beast. Wow.
Awesome. Good for her and good for your dad.
It's so funny because, people are always like, oh my God, you think of your parents having sex? And I'm like, fuck, I hope they're having sex. My parents are in their 70s. If I stop having sex.
60s, dear. Do the math. 60s.
50, 65. Oh, shit. Sorry. Sorry, Mom and Dad. God, if they were listeners, that would be epic.
You need to go back to first grade and learn math.
Yeah, public schooling in the
Kentucky
States.
schooling.
Yeehaw. So, yes, anyway.
You know what? I want to be having
I want to be having sex in my 60s.
In my
yeah.
60s, yeah.
Fuck, that'd be awesome. At that point, we will be in the swingers old folks home. Assisted living, assisted giving. I don't know.
Best old folks home ever.
Oh, excuse me. You're going to want to take your teeth out for this. Oh, God. We're hilarious. Anyway, do we want to continue on this? We
can go down a
I have
side
no
path.
idea what we were
care.
even talking about. I have no idea how we got here. I'm not paying attention to us.
Well, we'll move on to the next
Excellent.
bit. So the next few things I wrote down were questions that he had. We were talking about threesomes and group scenarios and things like that. And of course, him being completely straight and never having been in a threesome. I would like to think he's probably imagined it, but I don't know in what way in his
it's
head.
clear it's been on porn.
Well, yes. But, we were talking about the group scenarios and things, and he's like, and of course, Mr. Adam and I, as we've discussed many a time, are sociosexual, so we like to play with people that we're friends with. And he made the point that he couldn't just walk in and start playing with people that he didn't know. Well, maybe. And I liked the well maybe at the end of it.
And I get that.
Because it's one of those you want to be able to.
You want to be able to say that, but then you're like...
You can't really.
No.
It's hard. For us anyway, it's really hard. We like to know who we're hooking up with.
We do. However,
at least to
then
some
there's
degree.
gay saunas.
Well, but that's different, though.
It's mutual masturbation. So
Yes.
don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
If we happen to go into the bedroom tonight and there is a sexy couple that has broken into our apartment and they're not asleep, that would be creepy, and they're laying in our bed.
Like, hello, wake
Wakey,
up.
wakey.
We're gonna have sex now.
Eggs and bakey. Anyway.
Fertilized or unfertilized? That's the question.
Hard boiled. God, we have completely lost control of this podcast. Okay, focus. If we were to walk back there and there was an attractive couple in our bed and they happened to be naked, it would be very difficult for us to not pounce on them before we ask them to leave. But we don't go to bars looking. It goes back to today's date for me. I had an opportunity. I could have texted you and went, BTW, I'll be home tonight. I'm going to this dude's house and we're going to have wild, crazy monkey sex.
As long as you videotape it and I get to
I know. I would have FaceTimed the hell out of that. That would have been uncomfortable for you on the bus, though. Actually, you would have loved it.
I don't
You would have
really
loved
care.
it. Like, hey, look at this. That's my husband.
Oh, that's awesome at rush hour when you have like all the business people around. Be like, everybody, you want a show? Here you go.
Look, it's my husband.
Let me pull it up on the iPad. It'll be a little bigger for you.
Oh, that's great. But I have those rules, and I want to stick with those rules. We have those rules for a reason, and I stick by those rules. I think they're good rules. God, I wanted to break that rule today. Anyway, I lost track of what we were talking about. It's like I've been smoking pot, and I have not, and it really sucks.
Just we were talking about how he says that he couldn't walk in and start
Right.
playing, and then maybe because you want to think.
So what
that
do you think?
can.
Would you?
I'd like to. Again, it's one of those. Generally, I would say no because we do. It is nice to have at least a personality or something to know that you like something about
So
the
how
person.
long does it take?
Well, apparently one date.
But technically, does that date end when you get back to your house, or does that date end when you get back to their house?
So it's nice, admittedly, and to have a date, and then to still have contact afterwards, and that's kind of why I like the not hooking up on the first date, because then you have that contact afterwards that kind of builds the suspense and that the
Yeah.
anticipation, and you know that also that they're still interested,
Right.
that they're not looking for just a quick
Exactly.
hookup.
So and that's
Which is okay. Some people are bed notchers. We aren't.
yeah.
And
there's nothing negative about. I don't
No,
think
absolutely
if
not.
all you want to do is hook up once and then never talk to that person again, go ahead. But holy shit,
Yeah.
the amount of effort that goes.
It's a lot of
the-
work.
That's the other thing. I don't think that people actually appreciate the amount of front end effort that goes into swinging.
Well, not just with couples, but I mean, even just the number of times that we've been stood up.
Oh god.
And if all you're doing is you're gonna get stood up, I don't know, let's say 10 times for every one hookup, that's a fuckload of work, and it's not worth it.
Honestly, I get very little work done during the day because I'm just trying to reach out to couples
Yeah.
and singles. No, but it's
So I like to have that kind of at least, it may not be like super long term, and it may not always be frequent.
right.
Because there's people that we only see maybe every couple months
Right.
or whatever, and that's
But
fine.
they're quality people.
Right, and we still talk between back and forth.
Kick is the way to go,
there's-
folks.
Yeah, there's still constant communication, and it may be once a week we check in and have
Yeah.
some flirtatious banter or whatever, and then move on, and then it's another week or 2 weeks or whatever, and that's fine. But still, just for a one date hookup is, I don't know, that's tough.
Yeah, it's I don't. And so my attitude is, and especially with guys on Grindr, a lot of the guys on Grindr are one night stands.
Yeah.
And I would rather be a full bedroom ensemble. I mean, it's frustrating. But so like today, he goes. I said, hey, would you like to sometime get together, grab a coffee or a drink?
Mhm.
And the response I got was, I'm available today, Tuesday or Wednesday. And I went, hey, well, you want to catch a coffee right now? And
Yeah.
he was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, holy shit, for reals? So yeah. But yeah, so
Yeah.
What would it take for you to hook up with somebody on the first date? What extenuating circumstances? Because I know we've done it a couple of times since we've moved to Australia.
For me, it would have
But those were
to
weird
be.
times.
It would have to be. One scenario would be a transient person.
Like broccoli.
So yeah. So somebody who's coming into who's coming into town and they're only here for a short time or whatever. We've had a couple of those. Even there were some other American folks that were in town.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I mean,
Yeah,
granted,
but we saw them
we saw them
three
twice.
times.
Twice
Twice together, and then he came over by himself.
Yeah, so we saw them a few times while they were only in town for
Yeah,
2 weeks.
he was
maybe.
cute.
Yeah, they're really nice folks. And so yeah, people that are transient, especially RHP has the travel thing.
Yeah,
maybe
that's
you
true.
say I'm
Yeah,
traveling here, whatever. And so that's would be one scenario. Is okay, granted, time is of essence, and
Yeah, though I will say a caveat to that is, if I see on RHP or Grindr that people are transient, I disregard them almost immediately.
Yeah.
Because my problem is I'm afraid I'm going to find something I really like, and we already have a lot of long distance partners who we really like and either live up in Brisbane way or long enough away
Far
that
enough
we
away
can't
that-
get to
yeah.
them easily. So I tend to disregard
if it's too
if
far
it's too far
or transient.
because
yeah.
I'm lazy. Hell,
Yeah.
I disregard people out in Penrith. It's just too fucking far. God, I'm such a city dweller.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, if you're in the States and you're like, oh, where the hell's Penrith? It's the equivalent of going across the George Washington Bridge or the Lincoln Tunnel. You just don't do it. It's the bridge and tunnel crowd. You're like, not gonna leave Manhattan. I'm in. Yeah.
Well, admittedly for us, I mean, no, if you're going from the city CBD, Penrith on the fast train is 45 minutes.
Yeah, on the regular train,
It's
hour and
about
15.
an hour and
Yeah.
15. But from where we are, we have to take a 15, it's a 15-minute bus ride to get there, to get to the trains. And so it's a good hour and a half.
You got to be
about there.
Bernadette Peters
Yeah.
or
Because it's
Daniel
an hour and a half
Craig.
there and an hour and a
if
half back.
Bernadette Peters married Daniel Craig and they lived out in Penrith,
we might
we'd
move.
Oh
Yep.
God, I love you. Yep, that's probably what would happen.
We'd buy a nice house in the Blue Mountains.
Yeah.
A house that we can, just have everybody.
Gonna have to unzip here in a minute. Anyway, next question. Moving on.
So continuing on with the whole, there were several questions about the whole group scenario and threesomes and whatnot. One, of course, is when you have two guys and a girl, and one is completely straight, because, of course, we much prefer when everybody's bisexual.
course,
It's easy.
yeah.
But when one is straight, well, there's going to be incidental touching between the guys.
Yep.
And so you did a very good job of making it very clear that it's non-sexual, but there is going to be touching, and it's I'm not trying to convert
Yeah.
you, but you have to be comfortable with guys touching each other. If you're one of those people that's like, I can't stand to be touched, period,
Yeah.
by anyone, it's not going to
And
work.
especially, and there's a lot of guys out there that I do it to guys just to fucking fuck with them. If I shake your hand, my
Yeah.
other hand is going to be on your arm or shoulder. For me, it's a mental game. It's a sign of dominance. But in reality, I'm also trying to fuck with you because I know that there's so many men out there who are uncomfortable with touching. I love to hug guys because, admittedly, I do the bro
Man
hug.
hug or
The
full
bro
hug?
hug. But
Okay.
we start out as a bro hug. I always hold it just about a count too long, just to fuck with people. It's great. It's a good hobby. If you're a guy out there and you're like, you just want to fuck with people, nobody's gonna punch you. Nobody's gonna get all weird. But people are gonna look at you like, WTF? You hug somebody and you go 1,000, and that's just long enough for it to be uncomfortable. And it's only awkward
Love
if you
it.
make it awkward. And
Yeah,
I try to
that's
make
true.
it awkward. No. So number one, I think a lot of this goes back to, again, he, but I'm gonna say you as in the general populace. You, actually, I'll use we because being male, we see a lot of porn, and we judge our sexual reality based on the things we've seen, and because we are so uncomfortable talking about sex and sexuality and what sex looks like, heterosexual couples fucking suck at talking about what sex looks like. Homosexual couples are very good at it. And I think we've talked about this before on this podcast, and I guarantee you we'll talk about it again. The reason this is because we all know what sex between a man and a woman looks like. But between two guys or two women, we don't know what that's necessarily going to look like. One person is going to have to do one thing, and one person's going to have to be a giver or a top, and one of them's going to have to be a receiver or a bottom, or there's going to be some sort of variation that works for both those people.
And there has to be communication between the two to figure that out.
Exactly. And it's frustrating because heterosexual couples don't talk about that. So then we see porn in which we assume, because we're people, we assume that these actors and actresses are doing what comes naturally and what's normal. And we forget that behind the scenes, there's a sound guy, there's a makeup guy, there's a storyboarding guy. Yes, even shitty porn has storyboards and stories. And then you've got a director who is saying, this is what you're going to do. Now we're going to switch positions. This is what you're going to do. And let's be realistic. Real sex doesn't have 5 to 7 positions. I know I don't fucking have the stamina for 5 to 7 positions each time we have sex. I mean, we do it occasionally, but
Not every
that
time.
is much more uncommon than it is common. And it's frustrating because, this is honestly one of the reasons I'd love to tell this guy about our podcast, but I don't want him to think that we're talking down to him or belittling him. But I want to take him under my wing because I'm like, this guy has potential to be something positive, very good and positive, and I want to sort of spread this mentality of
I actually think it was quite good that he was,
he
and
listened.
we'll get to the, well, we can go ahead and skip down to this part now, but he did say at one point, "I've never spoken so much about sex to a guy before." And I think that was interesting because he was at least open to talking to you about it. Because, I mean, granted, I was on the
Right,
thread,
right.
but I was not an active participant at the time.
You were in the room, but you
was
weren't really
busy, yeah.
listening. Yeah.
And so, I didn't come in until much later at this point, really. And I do think it was at least interesting that he was willing to talk to you and ask questions, knowing that you were more than likely going to be the one to answer.
Yes.
It wasn't like he was talking
I told
to
him from the
me.
beginning. In
And-
fact, you weren't on that. That's why he originally said hi to the gatekeeper.
Right.
He didn't get the joke, that's a big knock against him. I even asked him if he got the reference. I called you the key. I called me the keymaster, and you're the gatekeeper. I'm not going to tell the people at home what that's referencing, because if you don't know what that means, GTFO. We, move on to a different podcast. This ain't the podcast for you. But I was like,
don't listen to him.
if they're not listening to me, they're not going to be on the podcast anyway.
Fair enough.
So, but yeah, I was like, I'm the keymaster. She's the gatekeeper. And I was trying to explain to him that you, and this is true of Mrs. Adam in all situations. She likes to be in the room, and I say in the room, on the chat thread,
Yeah.
listening, but she is not going to be an active participant unless we've met. If we have all met, that's when she gets interested. Up until that, you were just
I'm just
a
one
body.
of those people that I need to have a personality to go
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
it. And until I have a personality to go with your name, your handle, whatever, it's hard for me to make that into a real thing. And I mean, I know that sounds terrible, but whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think though that it was good that he was, he's curious and he's at least willing to talk about it. And I think that's a good sign. It doesn't, if nothing else, it just gives him information. And you don't have to do anything with that
Yeah.
information, but as long as you have the information, you at least have a better idea of how things for some people work. It may be for you, it may not be for you, and that's okay. But as long as you know that this is reality for some people, this is what their world is.
This is our normal.
Information is
Yeah.
power.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was what I was trying to get across to him,
Yeah.
was that this is our normal. We talked a lot, and to touch back on the whole threesome and what a threesome looks like, and blah 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 blah. I will say, we've had other guys say this phrase to us, and I absolutely hate it. The male, female, male threesome,
Mhm.
referring to it as a devil's threesome. That kills me. That is, if you use that phrase with us, you probably aren't going to be a part of it. You're not going to get to experience it.
Yeah.
I am all about a guy, doing either hot wifing, cuckolding, whatever you want to call it, fucking you and having no interest in me. That's fine. But as soon as you call it a devil's threesome, you're out. That is completely, with bar none, there is no coming back from that. That's just a side note. Sorry.
Yeah. And so the last thing I have on that whole section of the conversation was he asked, would there be rules?
Absolutely.
And we went on for a bit with this because, yes, there are always rules. And this goes back to that constant communication and, establishing rules and boundaries up front before anything happens.
Yep.
Which is, again, why we don't just jump into bed with everybody and anybody on a whim at the last minute.
Exactly. And that discussion of consent as well.
We want to have trust as well.
And so
some level of trust.
I tried to make that clear in that, it's like in the beginning, you ask before you do anything. There is constant communication. There is constant request for consent. Again, I say that because I feel like most of the perception comes from porn. And in porn, there is no communication. It's the guy typically does what he wants. The women become nothing more than objects. They're just sex toys. But that's not as much fun. So you do the communication, you do the consent, constantly asking, may I, can I? Yeah, it makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah. And again, if you have a little bit of trust in the people and whatnot, and just have that communication going between everyone, it's essential. You have to have it. And we actually, in this chat thread, we talked quite a lot about
Yeah.
that. You more so. I think I came in at the very
Yeah,
end of
you
that.
did.
But yes, there are always rules.
And
they relax as you get to know people better. Not relax the rules, but you know the rules, so you don't have to check in as frequently.
yeah.
But they're still there.
And I'll say I'm going back a bit because one of the things I made a joke to him that I always make to every guy that we've ever talked to, that I'm better at blowjobs than most women that you're going to experience.
That's a fact.
I've got references. I'm not great. I may not be like top 10, but I'm sorry, I may not be like 1 out of 10. I may not be 10. I'm a solid 8. For most guys, I'm a 9. And it all comes down to experience. And I actually said that, like, look, and I said it jokingly, but then he instantly got on the defensive, like, I'm not comfortable with you touching me, blah blah blah. Like, look, dude, I'm not trying to convert you. It was a joke.
Yeah.
Number one, you need to chill the fuck out. Which I get. He gets a buy on that, pun intended, because he hasn't met us. He doesn't know my sense of humor. It's hard to know sense of humor once you're together.
Yeah.
But another thing that I said, and I was very proud of this. I came up with this pretty long chat message that was, look at what you find attractive, look at what you find interesting, and ask yourself, is this because I actually find it interesting, or that's what society has told me I need to find interesting? Am I interested in a threesome because I really want to experience two other people at the same time, or am I interested in the threesome because I saw it on a porn and that's what I'm supposed to like? And so ask yourself there are a lot of rhetorical questions. And so a lot of guys, I think, I'm going to say we, although I don't include myself in this, but we are raised and taught that the epitome of everything is 2 women. There's nothing better than 1 guy and 2 women. That is what any man who can accomplish that is better than. Like, it's true, backwards. We are taught. That's what we're taught. And it's not necessarily we're taught by our families, because our fucking families don't talk about sex. We hide that part. So where do we learn that? We learn that from movies. We learn that from porn. And mainstream media even does it a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Look at
Charlie Sheen.
Commercials on TV.
Yeah. 2.5 Men was a horrific show. Ugh, Charlie Sheen is a fucking animal. But, he's glorified because he's, always had 2 women on his arms, on each arm.
1 woman on each
whatever.
arm.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
He doesn't have that many arms. Anyway.
He's like an octopus.
But I was challenging him to think about that. Not necessarily because I want to have any sort of physical relationship with him, but because I don't want him to be confounded by a box that society has put him in.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking this.
No, I can see where, society tells you that is what you should have, that's what you should aspire to. But is it what you really want? And if it's not what you really want, don't bother. Don't waste your time.
It's not even what society tells you should want, but also what society tells you shouldn't want.
Okay.
Both sides of that.
Yeah.
And I think both are bad. I think you really should, before you do any kind of group play or whatever you're going to do that is outside the heteronormative whatever, you need to really, really look into yourself and sort of introspectively and say, what do I want? Not what do my friends, my family, movies, shit like that make me want.
Yeah. And I will say that's where things really changed for me at one point in life, when I just put everything aside and I was like, okay, screw what everybody else says. What do I want from myself? What do I want from my life? Yeah. And that's what I then went out to get. I was like, this is who I am. This is what I want. How do I get that? And
you got me.
I did. Yeah, not too long after.
It's funny because I still envy you because you have that. You do that so well, and I still am. I'm constantly. I find myself constantly, almost on a daily basis, sort of bombarded by external pressures. We'll call them, and a lot of them are societal pressures. I see things on TV or I read them in books, and I'm like, oh, what I'm doing is pushing the boundaries of normality. And I still say what everybody really wants is to be normal. We want to fit in. We want to be part of a tribe and a group. And I still have trouble with that.
Well, I'm gonna stick with what you always say: is that normal is only an
I know.
average, and I'm completely above average. I don't fit into
You
that.
are right there. You're way above average, except in weight. You are delightfully below average in weight. Yeah.
Yeah. According to Red Cross, I am.
Look at, I still got it.
Yeah.
All right, what we got next? Moving on.
So there was a bit about that. And then we talked a little bit about how apps have changed the game, which that might be better left for the Grinder podcast.
I think we need to do a whole podcast on apps.
I think
At some point, I would love to do a podcast where we look at all of my profiles and your profile.
Right. So we'll save that. But then towards the end of the conversation, before things kind of wrapped up a bit for the day, I could tell he was trying to get a little more into the mindset of our lifestyle, because he asked, what are you guys into? Do you have toys? Are there fetishes you're into? Do you like restraints? And he asked about bondage, and so you could tell that he was kind of like, okay, if we're gonna go down this path, well, where do we go? And he just, it was like a blanket. I don't know, but here's some possibilities. And
yeah, I thought that was cute as well.
Yeah. He's definitely trying.
I actually really like this guy. He's
at least open and thinking about it.
Exactly.
So,
and it's one of those things. It's really funny. I'm gonna remind me of this conversation in a second. You may have to re-ask that because I'm gonna go down a path.
Okay.
But I picked this guy.
Mhm.
I'm the gatekeeper. I'm the
Key
keymaster. I don't fucking know what I am.
We're not trading roles
We're not,
here.
clearly. I don't know what I am. Anyway, I'm the one that does all the bloody front end work.
That's
and
true.
I try to pick.
And I just reap the rewards.
And you just reap the rewards. As long as you're not raping the rewards, everything's cool.
No, I don't do that. Consent.
Hashtag consent. We should totally try to hashtag consent and get that as a anyway. I do all the front end work. So, even picking a straight guy, I find that I pick the guys that I'm attracted to. Knowing sort of what you're attracted to, but even with saying that, there's times that you're like, that person's attractive, and I'm like, say what? Or you're like, I don't find that person attractive at all. I'm like, how is that possible? So I picked this guy because I thought he was attractive, and admittedly, he has a beard.
Mhm.
And one of the first texts that I get from Mrs. Adam, once she's included on this thread and he has sent a current picture, is he's all beardy. And then maybe I can get him to shave.
But now, admittedly, when you look at his Thrinder profile, which I had not seen at this point, he has two pictures. Right. One is shaved, and one is with a very close cropped beard.
Yep.
A very trimmed beard. Now, it's a little more grown out. I mean, I understand how beards work. They grow out, you have to trim them, whatever. I understand
how beards work. That's my favorite line that you've said tonight. I understand how beards work. Really?
So I understand that, sure, maybe you haven't shaved for a week, 2 weeks, a month, I don't know, whatever. Because it's not like a, really huge
maybe you don't know how beards work.
But it's more of a beard than I particularly like. But when you look at
he doesn't look Amish.
Right. No, not at all. But when you look at his Thrinder profile pictures, it's one without and one with a very close crop. Yes. So based on that, I absolutely would have picked him. But based on what I see today, I'm like, you need to trim. I'm very judgmental on that. I'm sorry. Yeah.
We'll talk more about this, I think, at our last question. But anyway, yeah, that's the direction I was going on that. and like I said, I need a memory prompt.
So where we were is when he was asking about restraints, toys, fetishes, things like
Oh, yeah.
that. Yeah. When he was trying to get a feel, get more into our zone and clearly trying to make us a little more comfortable and
I think he was
that
also
type of
just
thing.
curious. I mean, he's like,
Maybe.
but, I
Like,
think,
are these things real?
yes,
Do they
I think that's
happen?
probably part of it. And I also think
Yeah.
he's sort of like, these guys are super freaks. How freaky are they? And so I
Not
went,
really.
we're
I'd say middle of the road.
more than your average bear, I would say. If a 5 is the middle of the road and 1 is completely vanilla, I'd say
Yeah,
we're
okay.
a strong 7.
Okay,
Maybe
fair enough.
up to an 8. I mean,
At times, it depends.
yeah, but so I listed the things that we're into bondage. We find shibari beautiful and interesting, although we yet to really practice it.
Right.
We are into spanking and flogging, and then I added pegging because I
Yeah,
know that
absolutely.
fucking a. And then I also said
Pegging master.
you are a pegging master. We should do that
Amen.
tonight.
Sorry.
Is it too late?
No.
What time is it?
It's not. It doesn't matter.
That's my girl. Yeah. Yeah. So one of us may have prepared themselves already, just in case the date went really well.
Excellent.
Yeah. So anyway, well, that's a previous podcast, not another. That was a previous. But I did it right this time, and I didn't nearly pass out in the shower.
Excellent.
Hashtag I learned. But and then I included something that we're interested in moving into.
Mhm.
Honestly, if for nothing else but to sort of freak him out. I like to push people. I want to, and I don't do that to be mean. I do that to again call the herd.
Yeah.
And so I talked about puppy play, which is something
Mhm.
that Mrs. Adam and I have sort of talked about.
Very interested.
We're very
yeah.
interested in doing it and getting into it. This whole pet play kind of thing,
Mhm.
and we'll discuss this probably a different podcast. We've done a lot of background research. We've yet to actually try it. I would really like to try it in the next week.
I think we can.
If nothing else, for an hour to try to get into that
Yeah.
mindset and just see, is this something that we
Yeah.
like? But we'll talk about that more later. But one of the things I thought was endearing was he said something to the effect of, "I'm not sure I'd be comfortable being tied up with you guys, restrained with you guys just yet." And my
Absolutely fair enough. Hands down.
I wouldn't even do it. Yeah, I'd
No.
like
No.
I wouldn't tie him up, me personally.
No. Mm-mm.
I don't think
We have not tied anyone up that we haven't. That's not a serious play partner
one,
that hasn't specifically asked for it.
Two.
We had one in the
yeah,
states
and
that specifically asked for it, and his wife was
his
there.
partner was with him.
Yes.
So it's
Yes. But he asked, and he's like, "I've not done this before. I want it." And she was there, so we're like, "Okay." But you and I held back a lot more than she did because we're like, we don't know your
man,
boundaries.
she whipped the shit out of that poor boy. I mean, whew,
And
snap.
so, yeah.
I thought he was gonna cry. I was ready for him to cry. I was like, I'm gonna go get a tissue.
But because we didn't know boundaries, we held back a
Yeah.
lot because it's a new, you don't know, and while he was a good friend,
You don't know. Yeah.
It takes a lot of trust to tie someone up, and yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't do that with really just anyone.
Yeah.
And then the other one I can think of, again, her partner was there too, and so
Oh yeah.
so that's. But other than that, it's only been you and I
Yeah.
that I can think
But that
of.
was at OSS.
Mm-mm.
Was that here?
There was once, yeah.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
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 But it takes a lot of trust, and so I
Oh
absolutely
yeah, I
respect
do remember
him.
that. We can say
Yeah.
their name.
Yeah.
I think so. That was
Okay.
C&D.
Yeah.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah. But it was one of those things though that when he said that, I was like, absolutely, I would not tie you up without having a good
Yeah.
deepish relationship, and having a fair amount of trust in
Yeah.
someone.
No, I
But
agree.
to have a somewhat random stranger tie you up, that's, especially if you're not at all into this.
Well, we tied
No.
C down twice then. Once at OSS
Once
and
at
once
OSS
here.
and then once at our place. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did. Shout out to C&D, Swinging Down Under.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, no, I agree. And when he said that, I was like, "Don't worry, sweetheart. We fuck no."
No, yeah, I wouldn't even
It's funny
consider
because it for me, and this is funny, and this is another shout out to C&D. It's hard for me to trust anyone to tie me down and then hit me. I trust you,
Mhm.
but even you with somebody, it's hard for me to trust. And I can only think of a few people we've done that with.
C&D being one.
Yeah, they're the
Two,
only ones
but
in Australia, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. And then your BFF in the States. That's
Yeah.
the only other person who I've ever allowed myself to be restrained with.
Yeah.
I've been on a St. Andrew's Cross and let people hit me.
Mhm.
Girls' Night at OSS. We
Mhm.
should talk about that at some point as well. But I wasn't restrained.
Yeah.
Difference that being restrained that's a trust issue I don't like to cross with a lot of people.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So I think we've made it pretty well through.
Yeah, the long and short of it is we have a date with him on Sunday. We really like him. I really like him. I think
I think there was a lot
you'll
of good
like him more
conversation.
once you meet him
Yeah.
face to face. You like his background at this point.
I usually do like people more once I meet them face to face. So
Remember that, folks.
Sorry, everybody out there.
It's all right. That is why I'm the master of media, and you're the pretty
Yes.
sexy one.
I'm a tough crowd. I'm sorry.
She is. She's hard to please, folks. If you want to impress her, good luck. I still don't know how I did it. I have no idea.
Because you're awesome.
Yeah. One of these days we'll have to tell our origin story as a podcast.
Sure. But we have a closing question.
We do
for
have a
today.
closing question.
Yes, and this
Finally.
was from one of our listeners.
Yes.
So they asked us, what are one or two things, or one or two pitfalls, that could happen the first time in a threesome that would prevent an invite back?
Which I think is a great question. That's a great question.
An awesome question. And it ties
it's-
extremely well with
yeah.
what we're talking about.
Yeah, so she
yeah.
asked us this past week, which again, it ties in perfectly with what we're talking about.
So, Mr. Adam, what are any pitfalls that someone could do during a threesome that would prevent an invite
All right,
back?
so, and some of this is horrible. The first thing that pops in my mind is smell. I am a smell guy. And you and I have talked about this again in this past week. We were on the bus. Some three people got on the bus. They sat behind us. One of them had a smell that might have been fine to other people, but for some reason to me was just, is repugnant a word?
Yes.
Okay. Does it mean really something really bad? Yeah. It was repugnant. Like I almost.
And I'm going to interrupt
Yeah.
here and say that by smell, Mr. Adam does not mean it could be body odor, but it's more pheromone.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it wasn't like this person hadn't showered,
Yeah.
Because there was a sweetness to it. I mean, so and there was a cologne. I mean, I don't know. It would, but all three of these people that got on the bus they looked like you and I. They were clean cut.
Absolutely.
They were, well presented. They were attractive people.
Mhm.
And I've run into people like this before. I've run into guys on Grindr. I've run into women at bars, and there is this smell. You walk up to them, and it's like within a meter of them, a yard, within a meter of them, you're like, there's something wrong. That's the first thing, which unfortunately for whoever comes to play, they have no control over. You can't change that. It might be part of your diet or whatever, but you can't change that. Along with that, still with smell is breath. That is something you can fucking control. That is something that I am so paranoid about. And I think my paranoia goes back to my previous relationship with my previous partner, in which we didn't kiss. And I assumed the reason we didn't kiss was because I had horrible halitosis. So I started doing everything I could to prevent that. And it was
interesting.
Rather than ask her like a normal person.
Kissers. Some people just don't
and
kiss.
that was her. She just wanted to kiss her, which is fine.
Yeah.
Now that I know that, looking back, hindsight 2020, but at the time I wasn't smart enough to ask for what I wanted or what the problem was, but I assumed that there was a problem with me. And then when I started dating other people, I was like, oh, well, clearly the problem wasn't mine. Unless people are really tolerant of my halitosis. I don't know. I try to. Now I'm all.
You don't have
Now
bad
I'm
breath
freaking out
here.
again. But so that's something that if you have bad breath, that is something that you will not be invited back. Those two things: smell.
And the interesting thing about, much like this body smell thing, but bad breath is also very much person dependent. Because what you think is bad, I may not think
Absolutely.
is bad, and the next person, it's every person thinks is different.
Absolutely. So
But again, it's one of those things. If it doesn't match up, it does not
good
match
dental
up.
hygiene. That's important. So that's the first one. I actually do have 3 things that would
Okay.
bother me.
All right, yeah.
The second one is kissing. Kissing is paramount. If you kiss like a fish, meaning you just go mom 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 mom, that's not a thing.
Open and close.
Open and
Don't lift the
closed,
lips.
yeah. Your eyes should be closed, which is I think funny because you and I, it took you a long time to close
That's
your
a
eyes.
trust
I know
thing.
it took you
Yeah.
forever. I would peek through my eyes and you'd be staring at me. I'm like, holy shit. Well, at least she gives good head. It was for me that was a freak out. Like, ugh. But your eyes should be closed because I want you to trust me, and I'm not. Dude, fucking look at me. I'm not gonna hurt you. Um, she just nodded as
Fair
if I
enough.
was absolutely
Yeah.
correct, folks.
Yeah, fair enough. He's got a point.
I'm as strong as I look. Um, so that's important. We have to have a similar kissing technique, which is light and lots of tongue and sensual and soft. Not too much saliva, enough tongue. I don't want your tongue in my mouth.
You're not ramming it down the
Yeah,
throat.
your tongue's not moving in. I'm not subletting my mouth for your tongue. That ain't happening. So those things are important. And the last one, this is funny. It for me is body hair.
Okay.
Men, I feel like I need a dramatic pause. That's what that was.
Yes, I'm waiting.
I know, right? Men, I like body hair, but let's be realistic. If I'm gonna go down on you, and I'm assuming Mrs. Adam is the same way, we ain't looking to floss at the same time. Okay? We have shit for that. We floss with dental floss. It's mint flavored. It's lovely. So if you have those long ass scraggly hairs coming out of your genitalia region, fucking trim that shit. Side note to that, if you are really good, and I've seen this, I cannot tell you how many times I've seen this, where you trim like the groinal mound region, the above the below the belly button but above the cock.
The fupa.
Please tell people what that means.
The fupa. The fat upper pee area.
Fuck.
That's what it is. Well, okay, now not everybody it's fat. For most people it's not fat, but for some people it is, and then it's a fupa. So if it's not, I don't know what a skinny upper pee area.
Scoopa?
A supa?
Supa?
I don't know.
It's a super. It's a super sale. It's like Australians saying super. Super. Okay, anyway,
that upper
that
pee area.
yes, the triangle that is between your thighs, above your penis, and below your belly button. If I've seen guys that trim that, it's like this really nice, 2 to 6 millimeter trim, beautiful, and then hanging off their balls is like hairs that are the length of my thumb. Seriously, boys, look.
You don't have to shave it bald.
You don't, but trim the fuck out of it. I actually shave mine. And I know there are people who are listening to this that are suddenly cringing because they are like, I didn't fucking need to know that. Because contrary to popular belief, yes, contrary to popular belief, we have, friends that listen to this that we do not see sexually. Hello, lady. This is a shout out to the lady. Anyway,
the lady often makes me very.
Ooh, does she make you drippy?
Right now she is. Looking at her Twitter feed. Have you seen
No, has she posted another picture? Bloody oath. Anyway, hey, the lady's hot. I have no desire sexually for her. I know you do. But but she's a beautiful woman. Anyway, lovely feet. The girl's got nice feet.
Back onto the question.
Anyway, So shave your balls, or at least trim them.
Trim.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so that's me. So I rambled on and on and on. What that gave you time to think, because I know when you wrote this question down before we started, you were like, I have no idea what I'm going to say.
No, I knew one. I, for one, will very much agree with the smell. Because there have even been people, maybe not an initial smell from them, but after you have sex and they get sweaty, the smell of their sweat.
True, you're right.
There are a few people that afterwards, it's just like,
they smell like a garbage dump.
It's like, it's just one of those, I can't,
Yes.
You have to go. Like, you cannot stick, like, normally it's like, we might have a couple minutes of chit chat, but there are some people who are like, okay, yep, done, bye-bye.
It's when you say those romantic things after sex, like, get out of my bed. It's time for you to leave.
But but smell is very important, and it's not like they haven't showered.
Yeah.
It's not whatever. It's just clearly our pheromones don't
Absolutely.
match. Your smell doesn't match my nose. I don't know if they might be just as repulsed by me. I don't know. But
no one's
either
repulsed
way,
by you. You're perfect.
That's not true. But it's either way, the smell is very important, and if it doesn't match, it's not gonna work ever.
I agree.
It just isn't. And we've actually had that conversation with other friends of ours in the States. I know that one of our friends, she was dating a guy that we both very much liked, and we're like,
that's
he
true.
is awesome, he's perfect, whatever. And she's like, I can't date him, and we're like, we kept pushing her until she finally told us he smells after sex. And it's like,
and both of us went, oh yeah,
absolutely, 100%. I get
you
it.
should lead with that next time.
Yeah, because I understand that, and it makes sense. It's very important.
Yeah.
And again, for a one-off, okay, sure, maybe it's not a big deal, but for somebody that I want to come back, it's important. The other thing that I would say that would prevent someone from getting an invite back would be if during play and whatever is going on, if someone pushed past boundaries. So if someone said, no, I don't want this, or I'm not comfortable with this, or whatever, or was very clear that they weren't, and then said person kept pushing, that's a no.
No means no.
Yeah. If I'm not happy with something that you're doing, if I clearly don't want, and you keep going, you keep pushing, I'll very likely cut it off right there. But it's you for sure aren't going to get an invite back.
It's and
once you push past that boundary, that's it.
That's a good point. And that's
because you'll very likely do it again.
That's something that I said to that fella today. I was like, there's a million ways to say no. There's really only one way to say yes. And that's you're spot on. You're absolutely right.
Because it's very important.
We've been very lucky in that we haven't come across people who have tried to push those boundaries. We haven't together.
No.
I can only come up with a couple of times where I thought that somebody pushed a boundary that I didn't want pushed. And those were one-offs anyway. We knew they were one-offs.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So for me, that's the biggest. I would say that those are the two biggest. I would say for sure.
It's really funny. I feel kind of shallow that that all three of mine were sort of. I think the reason my three things. I think the reason my three things are more surface things, look and smell, is that I'm pretty confident that if I invite you into the bedroom, you're not gonna do something stupid.
True. We do a pretty good...
Hookups are different.
Well, I'm going to say we do a pretty good job, i.e. you do a very good job of vetting people.
I try. I really try.
Yeah.
I don't want to waste... It's funny because I look at it because I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste our time, but I know I look at your time as a little more precious. I don't want to waste your time.
Bedroom time, especially bedroom time with both of us, is extremely precious. And if you're going to get invited in on that, you're going to be on a short list. And you're going to go through a pretty good screening process.
Yeah. I mean, we only have an hour of bedroom time a day.
Really?
Do we have more than that?
Some days.
Well, it's good days. Yeah, weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
School days are harder.
School days suck.
Yeah.
Yeah, but cool. Excellent.
Yeah, so that was our question for the week.
I feel like this podcast went really well. Hey, so we are going to ask people out there to do us a huge favor, and whatever podcast listening source you get this from, please review us. We are trying to expand our audience. We don't know if it's good enough to expand or not, but
Yeah.
we want to hit as many people as we want. So if you like us, go to iTunes, I think we're on Stitcher, and give us a review. We would really appreciate it. We'd love to give you a shout out saying, hey, thanks. Or, if you don't like us, honestly, if you don't like us, review us as well. We'd like to know how to grow. We'd like to know how to improve this. We want to get out to as many folks as possible, and we want to be useful and relevant.
Yeah.
So if you don't like us, though, you have to give us some sort of the onus is on you to help us improve. So send your questions, comments, rude remarks. You can email us at theatomsoflove@gmail.com, or you can follow us on Twitter. Do you even know what our Twitter feed is?
I don't know. No.
She is such the pretty.
The Atoms of
You're
Love.
so pretty, but you are beautiful, and everybody loves your breasts.
It's saved on my phone. I just opened Twitter and it's
God
there.
bless you, and I set that up for you.
Yes.
God damn it.
Yes,
I
you did.
love her. She is perfect, people. Beautiful. Ugh. Anyway, yes, so you can follow us at the Atoms of Love.
TheAtomsoflove.
That's on our Twitter feed. And we have a brand new Facebook page, which I'm pretty fucking sure is By the By Podcast. There's a couple of other By the Bys, but
Community groups and
Yeah,
whatnot.
yeah.
So make sure to look for the
yeah,
podcast.
it's By the By
Yeah.
Podcast. Near certain. I'll fix that and put it on our website. Our website is www.
Easy for
Wow,
you to say.
clearly. www.bythebybebi.com.au. It's got mostly podcast links, but we also try to post some of the links that we talk about in podcast.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's I guess we can wrap up. Yeah. Should we wrap up now?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
And
Thanks for
thanks for
listening.
listening. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.